and see where this goes. So, welcome to
Okay.
the CrossFit Canada podcast, a place
Thanks.
for usually Canadian affiliate owners and coaches. But I feel like my guest today is you're part of the North Midwest, right? So almost like
Yeah,
Canada, the U.S., like just as
that's what we
polite.
call it. That's what everybody in the United States says. You're up in
Yeah.
Canada, aren't you?
But no, super excited to have Athena Perez on, affiliate owner, coach, author, seminar hoster or creator, to say. So all that stuff. So Athena, to kick it off, I just always
Yeah.
like to have you introduce yourself, even though I just did. Your affiliate and what year we'll start. I always like to start right at the beginning. What year was your first CrossFit workout? So name,
Yeah.
affiliate, and first CrossFit year of the
Cr-
first CrossFit workout.
Yeah. So my first CrossFit workout was uh week 5 of the 2017 Open.
Amazing. Do you remember what it was?
I know. I mean, no, I remember 2018, probably because it was filmed, but I don't remember. I mean, I was sitting on a bench that night. I walked in CrossFit. I don't know if I'd call it a workout, but that was what everybody was doing that night. They gave me a couple dumbbells and they said, "Hey, just sit here and move." So that was pretty much all I was able to do at that point.
Yeah. What's your affiliate?
My affiliate is Scaled Nation. We're based here in Minnesota, but we're soon to be opening up another location in Ohio.
Amazing. And so
Yeah.
a brick and mortar location or a
Yeah.
garage gym?
Yeah.
Amazing. And so, I mean, to just jump right into it, for those who don't know, when you said your first workout was, or
Hmm.
first CrossFit workout was in the 2017 Open, week 5,
Yeah.
how much did you weigh then
Hmm.
versus how much you weigh now? Because I believe that is how your journey really got started in CrossFit.
Yeah. Um, so I had started my journey in January of that year. We don't really know how high up the scale had gotten because your traditional scales just don't go that high.
Yeah.
And so when I was finally able to go to the doctor's office, I was about 2 months into the journey and I was down. It was finally registering as like, it was kind of blinking on and off. It go
Going into like
450.
the
Yeah.
3 lines or the arrows or
Yeah.
yeah.
So the doctor's like, my best guess based on your body weight and what you've been doing over the last, 65 or 70 days or whatever it was, that you were probably pushing 5.
Okay.
So that's the number that we used because it was probably as close as it was. I've been in CrossFit now. This is year number 9, and I'm down 264 pounds,
Amazing.
265.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry, when you say your journey, um, is that your health journey or like transformation journey, or did that start with CrossFit right away, or was it kind of like one thing led to the other?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I consider it part of the physical side. The physical side of my health really started then. The mental side of that journey started 7 years before. So the very first thing that I decided to do was to start therapy. So I did that for 7 years before I ever walked into a gym. I don't know if I would have been ready.
Yeah. And I mean, if my memory serves correctly, so
Yeah.
again, I think this part of the conversation is important for the listeners who
Yeah.
aren't familiar with their story, but it should still be on YouTube. I haven't checked, but
Oh
you
yeah,
were on.
it's still there.
It's still there. Okay, as I say, you were on the original CrossFit podcast
Hmm.
with Savon many
Yeah.
years ago. But if I recall correctly from that, is you at that point, you when you started your health journey, you weren't going upstairs in your house, right?
I wasn't.
You were sleeping all on the same floor, and so
Yeah.
I think part of that stuff is important to contextualize when we talk about walking into the
Yeah.
gym for the first time, and what a struggle that was mentally.
Yeah. So I have a three level house, like everybody in the North, we all have basements, right? And my bedroom was up on the third floor. And I don't even remember how long it had been. It was just too hard to get up there. I just remember it was so laborious just getting up there. And so I hucked a bunch of blankets and pillows and stuff over the balcony and ended up parking it on the couch. It was months and months and months. I don't remember how long it was. It was a long time. And so I just stayed on the perimeter of this main floor. I had a bathroom, a shower, the couch, TV, and the kitchen. What else did I need, right?
Right.
And so yeah, walking into let's clarify that though too, because the goal was different, like yes, it evolved, but I couldn't think that far ahead, like it didn't even um I don't know if I ever could have imagined doing CrossFit. The goal, because I was on walkers and a cane, so that's how I navigated around. And when I had gotten to the point where I had changed my eating and I had gotten that in a pretty good rhythm, I don't want to say I got it under control. I don't know if that's ever been true, but I got to the point where I was in a routine and I felt like I could bring on something new, but then the question was what? And so a friend of mine who I knew was always posting on his Facebook that he goes to this CrossFit gym. I didn't even know what CrossFit was. I just remembered that it looked like he always had a great time. So he was always posting these stories, and he was always featuring this coach that he worked with. And I thought, well, gosh, maybe I could just work with this coach, and this coach could teach me how to get off my walker and cane. That was as far as I could see.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to do something, because the doctors 2 months before had said, hey, if you don't do something about your weight, you're going to lose the ability to walk permanently. Like, it's getting that bad. So you got to do something or you're going to be in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up in a CrossFit gym. I thought I was just going to be working with the coach one-on-one to get me to walk again.
And you, so he brings you in.
Yeah.
And your friend, he's like, hey,
Mhm.
meet me. I maybe even use the term Friday Night Lights, and you walk into this gym and it's week 5 of the Open.
If I remember correctly, the way that he described it, he was like, oh, you're coming during the Open. He said it was the Open, but I didn't know what the Open was. And he said,
Sure.
everybody's going to be here. You're going to get to meet everybody. And we always have food. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm game. Right. And we always turn it into a big barbecue and you'll have a good time. I don't know if I thought I was going to have a good time, but I was like, well, let's go see. And then, of course, I get over there. There are hundreds of people there. Like,
Yeah.
the gym was a pretty good size as it was. They had like 300 athletes, and that's a pretty good size affiliate,
Sure.
And I was just completely overwhelmed. Everybody was just so nice. And they were coming over and they were introducing themselves and they were talking to me. And so that's kind of how it started. I would come into the gym and I was just doing one-on-one time. So I could see the classes would come in, or they would be leaving like right before I'd come in.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'd get done and then there'd be a class like at noon starting. And then it was only a couple weeks. I was getting to know people. And then pretty soon, before I know it, they were like, hey, you should come in and do a boot camp. And I'm like, hard stop. I'm like, I can't even walk, And they're like, no, we can modify everything. And I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I was like, modify everything. I'm not doing a push-up from the ground or anything like that. But I came in for that first one. And almost every activity kind of had me seated on the box, just doing basic things. And I remember leaving that first one thinking, well, shit, I could do that. Like, that's not that hard. I could do these things. And then it just quickly evolved. Within I would say within 2 months. So this was March. So by May, I was off the walker and the canes. I was moving around. I was walking on my own. I was climbing steps. Like, it didn't take that long at all. And then by the end of July that year, I decided to take the first CrossFit class. This was like, you know, the 5 a.m. cool kids club
Okay.
that I got invited to. And I was like, you know, I wanted to be one of the cool kids. So I was like, yes, I'm there, you know, the coveted group, that morning group. And so I thought I was special because I got the invite to come. And, you know, I went and took my first CrossFit class, and the rest is history.
How important for you was it, like, to step into that class of like the identity, to be like, I'm now a 5 a.m. CrossFitter. This is me now.
Well, that's a great question, because that identity piece, I think that happens for a lot of us in CrossFit. It didn't happen for me right away. In fact, it was almost 9 months after I had started CrossFit. You know, everybody called themselves CrossFitters. I wasn't part of that. I went to the 5 a.m. class and I was part of that group. But in terms of like thinking of myself, like as an athlete, so for the Open, here we are 9 months later, we're in the Open in 2018. And the gym owner had gotten me a shirt that said athlete on the back of it. And I thought it was so strange and uncomfortable. And I'm like, this shirt says athlete on the back. And he's like, well, that's what you are. And I was like, oh, you know, like,
Yeah.
oh. And it wasn't until I had my shirt, because that's what it said on the back, that identity piece started, like, oh, okay. Like, it's so like I had permission to see myself that way, because it didn't
Yeah.
feel right. You know, I was still hundreds of pounds overweight, and it didn't feel right to say I'm an athlete. I just didn't see myself that way for a really long time.
No, it's so cool that, like, because I think of, like, was it Simon Sinek, or when they talk about like storytelling, it's like people like us do things like this, and it's like
Mhm.
athletes, right? Like, well, hey, you're showing up, you're probably having protein, you're probably
Right.
checking the wads every night at 8 o'clock, you're probably already starting to strategize.
Oh,
It's like,
yeah.
hey, you don't have to have that title, but guess what, lady? You are a CrossFit person, and
Yeah.
you're a CrossFitter now. And whether someone identifies, yeah, as an athlete or a CrossFitter, or I have she now refers to herself as one of us, but one of our members' wives joined years ago, and for like 3 years she would be like, I can't do what you people do. She would refer to us as you people. She was a runner, and we're
Yeah.
like, you've been one of us for the last 3 years now. you can
Yeah. So
you can
true.
call us you can call us that, or you
Yeah.
can call yourself that.
Yeah. It was really weird. It was almost like something happened that day where it was like it was okay. Like I could call myself that and nobody was going to think I was weird.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I'm fascinated that you did some version of like an onboarding program, and
yeah.
then you did a boot camp. And
Yeah.
because I know some CrossFit gyms do boot camps, or have in the past, and at CrossFit Aurelia we did for a couple of years, but I found it hard to transition people, even though we used to, in our boot camp, we would do 1 rep max deadlift, we would do Fran,
Mhm.
we would do Helen. And every time we would do those, I was like, hey guys, you guys just did CrossFit. So just so you know, it's like boot camp, but you just did CrossFit. But they
Yeah.
could never identify as CrossFitters. And I was like,
Yeah.
you know what? We just gotta, I'm gonna stop doing this, because I want people to identify as that.
You know, it was kind of weird. It's interesting that you say that too, because at um try to figure out, like, I've never articulated this before. So that that boot camp group was, it's like they were different. It's
Right.
like the class itself, like the CrossFitters definitely would not have been okay with the boot campers calling themselves CrossFitters because they weren't using a barbell, And so they're like, basically boot camp was CrossFit without the barbell. That was how they explained it to me. And that was the culture. And if you were part of the boot camp tribe, you were not one of the CrossFitters. Like you had to pick, like you were a 5 a.m.er, you were a
Yeah.
6 a.m.er, or you were 5 or 6 p.m. period, And so it was just kind of the goofy thing. So that's why I always felt like it was kind of a graduation. Like Athena was joining the dark side when she joined the CrossFit classes,
Okay. Yeah, you left
And
the crew behind.
yeah, like, oh, you don't want to be part of the boot camp tribe anymore. You want to be one of them. Okay,
Yeah.
It was fun though.
So, and then it's you as you mentioned, then you rock and roll. Then the following year to the Open, you get your
Yeah.
athlete shirt.
Yeah.
And then you CrossFit kind of picked up your story from there, and you again you were CrossFit famous for a bit there. So
Long time, yeah.
how did life, and I guess when we think about it in the sense of like when you first walked into a CrossFit affiliate,
Yeah.
you didn't want a ton of attention, and the
No.
entire gym was there, and then you join a class and you're now a CrossFitter, and then now it's like the proverbial attention of the CrossFit community. How did you
Right.
reconcile with that, like as you were going along?
I don't know if I ever did.
Okay.
You know, I when all of that happened, um, it was very uncomfortable, because I would go to another gym, and I mean, I would say for the better part of a couple years. I mean, even now I go somewhere and everybody's like, "Oh," so it never really stopped. But I don't, I don't know that I ever really got as comfortable as maybe some people do with,
Sure.
hey, because it morphed, and I'll explain that. So in the beginning, it was just, hey, this gal had a transformation story, and it was like, oh, you need to see Athena's video and blah, blah, blah. And then that changed when I became a coach. And then here we are a couple years later, and the energy was way different. I would start visiting CrossFit gyms. I did a lot of drop-ins in places, and it was different. And when I say that, I mean, suddenly, coaches started getting a little intimidated. They're like, Athena, one of the first things that they would say when I walk in, like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to scale you like you could scale yourself. And so it was almost like this weird transition thing that happened. And it's even still like that today, where I think I make people nervous when I walk in, because they're like, I don't know if I could scale you near as good as you could scale yourself, kind of thing. And I hear it all the time, which is interesting. I know.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's I think of it's and it's funny to me that you say that because and just like because it's about perspective, and
Mhm.
something I was thinking about prior to our conversation is, and this is like jumping way ahead, but we'll try and
Mhm.
dial it back into a second, is so basically, to sort of cut to the chase in the moment, is what this talking, because you talk about
Yeah.
scaling yourself, is because you host a seminar called Working with Larger Bodied Athletes, correct?
That's right.
Or something close to
Yeah.
it. And we'll get into the nitty gritty of the seminar, but just to understand, like, while we think, like, as coaches we can be very well intentioned,
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
doesn't someone's a coach is very well intentioned, and they say to someone who's not comfortable or able to run yet, hey, well, you can just hop on a rower. But
Right.
for someone who's larger bodied, that bunched up feeling of being
Yeah.
on the rower is almost more mortifying than the walking. Is that
Can be.
correct?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, right. And so the seminar exists from your experiences and talking with others, and to help people come up with a better way. But
Yeah.
my point for perspective is that so you have a really strong perspective of that side of, we'll call it the baseline,
Oh yeah.
but you've also been studying for your level 3, correct?
That's right.
And I know you've shared on your social media at times, like you feel like you don't have perspective of the other side, like the more elite, we'll call it elite or higher end levels of fitness. Is that a fair understanding from
Oh,
my
totally fair.
yeah.
Totally fair. The I think studying for the level 3 has probably been one of the best things that I ever did for myself. It exposed me to so much. We think like, oh, I've been a CrossFit coach for 8 years. What is it that I don't know? And it wasn't until I started cracking open all the L3 education, I'm like, there's a crap load I didn't know. But the seminar, just to give people some perspective on how this transpired. So
Yeah.
part of it was, definitely some of my own experiences. It's not that I had bad coaches.
No.
I had great coaches, but I also had coaches that had never worked with larger body people before. We were figuring it out kind of as we went along. So that was part of
Yeah.
it. The other part of it is that I think that there was a lot of, I would get a lot of weird, and I don't want to call them dirty looks because I don't want to assume that they were looking at me in a negative way. Sometimes I think it was just surprise. They would look at me and they could still see a very plus size woman, not realizing that, some of the first responses I would get was, I thought, CrossFit did that video on you. I thought you'd lost a couple 100 pounds. I'm like, I have, like not
Yeah.
realizing like when you're coming down from 500 and you lose 200, you're still at 300, you still have
Yeah.
a long way to go. And so I think that there was, I don't know if I want to call it confusion, or I wish that I could have gotten into a lot of people's heads back then, but I think that they were surprised. And again, I think it was just kind of a transitional thing. You go from being the CrossFit superstar story to
Sure.
now you're a coach. And, when you put on a coach's shirt, I feel like you're held to a different standard. And so I think that there's standards that they assumed, like, they would see me and they're like, well, you need to walk the walk. And like, what am I not doing to demonstrate that I'm not walking the walk? But they see you as you are right now, not realizing where you came from. So I faced a lot of that in my very, like in my infancy in my coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a lot to have to go through, just personally, just being a larger body coach, which there's more and more of it now. But when I started as a coach, I felt like I was in a very small population.
For sure. And I see, to me, I hear like I always refer to it as like scripture, like degree differ by degree, not by kind.
Yeah,
And we see if again, if we took that all the way to the inverse, that would be like someone who's a games athlete comes to do a drop in and they say, oh well, there's nothing I can coach you on, so just come and do the class.
right,
And for them to say to you, oh well, like you're a coach, you're aware of what you can do, I don't you can scale yourself, like
right.
in a way therein lies like one of the things that I think
Yeah,
CrossFit coaches need across the board, from
right.
one end of the continuum to the other, need to do a better job at leveling up on, is because we our job as at least my opinion, our jobs as coaches is to provide value to everyone in front of us, regardless of where they're at.
Absolutely. I wouldn't disagree with that. Which kind of brings us to it's gonna be a little journey to your
Sure.
original question, but it's all gonna make
Yeah.
sense, I promise. So,
Yeah. Love it.
so I struggled a lot when I first became a coach because there was a lot happening. Um, the year after that journal story came out, I had just waited too long to my legs just took too much pressure for too long. And so they told me, you're going to need total knee replacements on both legs. And I didn't realize what that was going to mean for me. And it basically meant like starting everything that I had learned in CrossFit. Like I had to start over again from like the bottom level. And it was hard finding coaches that had worked with people that were coming back from double knee replacements. They didn't know what to give me. They didn't know what to do. And it was a struggle. And so I had to kind of create like, okay, here's Athena, here's what you do. Like I had to learn how to walk myself through a lot of these things. And so it just became what I started focusing on, is just working with people that had had joint surgeries, or working with people that were coming into CrossFit the same way, exactly where I was when I came in. And it was just a demographic that I felt really comfortable with, obviously, because I've been there. It's so easy to relate. And now when you fast forward, right, I've had, the average person, say in Scaled Nation, like we only work with larger bodied folks. So they're people who are struggling with severe obesity. There's hundreds of extra pounds. Quite typically, it's not unusual for someone in my box to weigh between 400 and 600 pounds. So that's the lens for years and years and years and years that I learned to coach through. So say there's I was taking the online programming course, right? And I knew I was going to have problems in my L3 when I started getting into these questions, because they'd give me this athlete and they say, okay, here's an athlete. He's 35 years old, and he got 17 minutes on his 5K row, and he did this, so it break down and give me 4 different examples. Here's his recent scores, and you need to tell me where he needs improvement, right? And I'm looking at some of his scores compared to, what me and Scaled Nation averages, and I'm like, to me, that's a damn good score. Like, he's doing great,
Yeah.
But again, like, that realization, it actually happened live. So Hobart asked me, he's a good friend of mine. He asked me to come on the CrossFit podcast, and I was like, this is going to be great. We've been talking about this for years. And so I'm on the CrossFit podcast, and they decided to change something up. This was in April. I'm getting ready for the L3, thinking I'm ready. And so we're doing the podcast, and they had Connor Murphy. Well, I didn't know who Connor Murphy was. I was like, well, am I supposed to know who Connor Murphy was? It's just not a side of CrossFit that I had a whole lot of exposure to, the elite side, the competition side. It's not that I can't get excited during game season. It just doesn't drive me the same way that, what I call the CrossFit health side of CrossFit.
Sure.
And so we're on the podcast, and Denise, she looks over at me and she's like, so Athena, so what do you think Connor's going to get on his workout time? I'm sitting there looking at him, and I'm like, how would I know? You know what I mean? Like, how would I know what he's going to get? I've never seen him move before. I have no idea. I mean, if you've never worked with average, how could you possibly know what average is? That, knowing those averages comes with just time and experience. A lot of this time and experience just comes with working in an affiliate. But when your affiliate only has one type of athlete, it's very easy to get a very narrow lens. Now, do I regret the specialty that I have? No way. It's the thing that I am the most proud of. But the L3 exam doesn't give a shit about my specialty. It wants to know that, hey, if you're going to be a master at this and earn that designation, you have to be able to apply this knowledge across the broad, just like our methodology says. And so it was like, wow, I have some exposure issues, but it was very humbling at the same time that I had those types of exposure issues.
Well, and again, like the scripture, like, the we fail within the margins of our experience, right there.
Right.
And so what perspective, and what's cool about this is, as you just mentioned, this kind of is all real time within this year.
Right.
How if at all, has this new perspective or this new like room that you didn't know you had, that you had to start filling with stuff. How
Mm-hmm.
has that helped you working with your clientele, if at all? Or what's how does it have your wheels turning now?
Um, One, I think it was just the volume of things that I was exposed to. I don't know if it changed my perception of, like what we do in CrossFit and what the goals are, what the stimulus is, any of that. It's just, um, I'm trying to figure out like, how has it changed? I think it was just more perspective.
Sure. Okay.
Like, wow, hey, when we do CrossFit, like this is kind of what we're shooting for. This is what we would consider average. I think it's just having that knowledge. It was like, wow, okay. It's just,
Well, I
you
think it
don't realize how.
Yeah, and I guess maybe like my thought goes towards like, again, I've coaching, aside from providing value, as I mentioned,
Yeah.
like is transferring belief. And part of our job is, especially if you're working with this specialized population,
Yeah.
someone's 300 pounds and you talk about today's workout has pull-ups in it,
Right.
and it's kind of like, okay, yes, we're going to have a scaling option for you. But my thought is, regardless of what your scaling option is today, I have to have you believe that you'll be able to do pull-ups someday.
Correct.
And that's so it's still like then taking you to that more like that side there, right? As opposed to, I guess, from a perspective of someone sitting there like, oh, I'm never going to do pull-ups. It's like, whoa, with that attitude,
That's
sure.
right.
But my job is to scale you, not for participation, but for progress, to say, hey, it could be 2 years, it could be 12 years, but you will get that pull up, and it starts with today.
Yeah. One of my, I call her my seminar sister. She teaches the seminar with me. She's an L3 as well. And I remember her saying to me one day, she's like, Athena, like, how do you not know some of this? And I'm like, well, first of all, you don't know what you don't know when you go sit for that thing. And I'm like, well, I knew exactly where a lot of those areas were the minute that I walked out of there. It wasn't a surprise, like I've told everybody, it's not trying to trick you. I knew exactly where I took too long. But I think one of the areas that I struggled the most was on programming, under the bucket programming. And again, this is not a surprise to me. When we're thinking about, how does CrossFit work? Well, CrossFit works. You program for the best, right? You scale for the rest.
Yeah.
Now, when you're talking about working with the demographic that I work with, we're not talking about, I don't even know if we're really talking about scaling the same way that people do. If we're just talking about, lowering the reps, changing the weight, or, that is not what this is. I'm almost back building it. So when people say, oh, well, what's the workout? How are you going to scale people? Scale Nation is a little bit different because of who we work with. We're having to take that workout, and what CrossFit considers beginner, that might be on average 2 to 3 levels higher than what the baseline here is at Scaled Nation. So it's almost like I've had to fundamentally look at here's the top of Everest, right? Because that's what it looks like to me every day. And say, okay, what does CrossFit say is beginner? Now, how do I back that down a couple levels so that my classes can still have levels, right? Because they still want that too. So I got to back it down 3 levels, build up. Sometimes beginner is okay for people. And so I almost feel like I've had to operate in slightly different reverse. And again, like, it's not a complaint. It's just a totally different lens for so long. if I were to look at somebody in my gym and be like, somebody got a 5K row in 17 minutes, I'd be like, wow, way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just, if you don't see things, but then I could turn around I could turn around and look at some of these other coaches that primarily work with quote unquote average and say, okay, can you do what I do? You know? And
Yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah,
which is the
yeah.
reason that we have the seminar in the first place, because I have found from my experience, most can't.
Right.
Most is a
And again,
strong word. So many can't, especially newer coaches.
well, or being have they been, and just like you said, you didn't know what you didn't know.
No, yeah.
They it I do think it's fair to say most can't if they haven't exposed themselves
Correct. Yeah.
to those to
Exposure,
that.
right.
Yeah, right. Like, and or I guess to say, like, we think we understand scaling, but part of it, as like I mentioned, is like, I think the delivery of scaling is also dependent on how it's received. And I
Which in
guess what I
turn
mean by that
depends
is,
on how it's delivered.
yeah,
Yeah.
or it's like it's a
Right,
three, or
right.
it's like a delta, or how it works
Yeah.
together. Like, it's something simple that I'm hyper aware of my words when I coach, to the point of, for me, like, I think it's fun. So, like, I say, like, if you're short, instead of like, hey, my short people, I'm like, if you're efficient in your proximity to the ground, I'm gonna have you over here.
That's great. I
Or
like that.
if you say, like, even just like pull-ups, like, even just to say, if you don't have a pull-up yet, could still hit the wrong way with someone, to say, like, hey, if you're still working on a pull-up, or if you're still on your journey, here's what we're going to have you do today. But even then, the word just, I'll just have you do some jumping pull-ups.
Yep.
It's like, right, is some people don't realize how much that, or like, hey, today you're just going to jump up and do 5 kip swings, like, not even realizing how much your words
Oh, yeah.
were just could hit wrong to the wrong audience.
It's true. One of the things that we teach in the seminar is just that very thing. And one of the best example words that comes up is easier. And what that means when we say the word easier, because if you were to take one of the examples that we give in the seminars, we pull it right out of the level 1. So we just use Fran as the example, right? So we take the 200-pound athlete. He's 200 pounds. He's 6 feet tall, whatever. He's doing 95 pounds on the barbell. And then we give the example of, like, if we take that same athlete and we say, okay, he's 400 pounds, we're going to put him on ring rows. And so we're going to take away, 50% of his body weight, right? So that'll count as 200. We'll have him on the thrusters, but we'll have him on a PVC. And so when you actually do, like, the work and power calculations at the very end, we find that this larger body is actually doing more work than the RX athlete. And so it's something that we teach in the class. Like, look, CrossFit already gave you a way to prove that that larger bodied person in the room is probably one of the hardest working and is doing the most work.
Yeah.
CrossFit gave us a way to prove that. So when an athlete says, well, I'm not doing as much work with anybody, like, once you learn those calculations, it would take you 2 minutes to go up to the whiteboard and prove to him, there's a way that you can prove this through it, walk him through it and say, you're not doing less work. You're actually doing more work. And here's how, here's why. And so it's just how we talk about it, how we teach it. Yeah.
Well, I think of, and I know it's cliche in a way, and it's not on the air anymore, and it has its flaws, but I do think of The Biggest Loser, where at the end of the season, they would have the individuals carry the weight that they've lost, and then whenever they reach a certain checkpoint, they get to dump it off, and it's, even for them, in that, yes, crash version of weight loss, they couldn't understand, or they lost perspective of how much they were carrying around. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, to say easier isn't fair, in the sense of, guess what, that 400-pound person's work still continues on their walk to the car, they get in and out, the carrying their groceries in, like, that's the work is there, and it continues.
Yeah, they're wearing a weighted vest every single hour of the day. It's work all day long. So, yeah.
And then, so, for like I said, it's like we got to get someone to believe that they can do these things. And um, I would be remiss too not to talk to you about something that I'm interested in as well, is that your
Yeah.
time spent with my good buddy Tosh and
Gosh.
doing diesel days.
Mm-hmm.
How and what, you know, what that, because you actually believe you went and did a diesel days, which is
Yeah.
24 hours of
Yep.
getting after it at the ranch, and
Yep.
even brought some people back with you for a second time.
Yeah.
So, you know, and again, just real quick for those who don't know what diesel days are, is it's 24 hours and you alternate in 2 hour blocks of on the machines, and a trail hike back. And I can't give too much away without giving away
Yeah. I
the
was just like, you
secret
better
sauce.
not say too much.
Yeah, but
He's gonna be texting you. Dum, dum, dum.
yeah, I don't know if he's one of my tens of listeners, but
Mm.
he's a busy guy. No, but what did that, if anything, what did that 24 hours do for you in terms of like, wow, like I'm pushing myself to now, the I've done workouts, I've done the open, now I've got this whole new challenge from there.
Well, the first time was different than the second time because the first time I quite literally had nobody told me anything.
Sure.
And so it was very secretive. And I knew that it was supposed to be a mindset event. I knew that it was going to be physical, but I didn't know what that was going to mean. It wasn't until I was on the deck. You know, it's that morning. You've done diesel days?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
done one and two. Yeah.
So it was not until that morning when I was like, "Oh, holy shit, what did I sign up for?" You know?
Yeah.
And I was probably 13 hours in on that first event, and I thought I was gonna have a mental I thought I was gonna lose it. Like, um, I think one of the biggest takeaways, from that event for me, obviously, it was all internal, and the
Yeah.
crazy thing about and I don't know if you would agree with this or not since you've done diesel days, I feel like we're part of a special club, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, excuse me, some of those takeaways didn't come right away.
It comes
Um,
in that email
it
he sends 3 weeks later, and you're
Yeah,
like, son of a bitch, how did you know?
it's the reflection I think that comes from when you get home and you start applying those things to your real life, and
Yeah.
and just the realization that, you know, your brain is gonna give out way before your body does, and I don't know if I ever would have believed that. And I didn't realize so much of this was, under my control. So,
Yeah.
there was a ton of things, and then, obviously, the second one was different because I knew what I was walking into. Never thought I would wanna do it again. When I I remember when I left that how grateful I felt, and I was like, "This was amazing." I was very emotional for a long time for a lot of reasons, but, um, never thought I'd wanna do it again. And then there I was a year later, and I'm trying to get people from Scaled Nation to, you know I know it's hard to believe. I know that, there's just a lot of, especially if you've been larger your whole life, there's just certain things that you grow to believe about your own identity, and that's part of it. It's like you can do way more than you think you can.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's interesting too is it would be fair for anyone going through, and Tosh is an extreme professional at this. As you said, like you're 13 hours into this 24-hour event and you just hit a wall, and a mental wall. But as he probably like talked you through at some point, was like, that's the whole point. It just took you 13 hours. Some people it takes 3, some people it takes 21. It took you 13 hours. And at that point, it's not like, okay, well, you know, you got it this far. Okay, you should be proud of yourself. It was, we'll help you and support you through as long as it takes, but you will keep going, and
Mhm.
you will finish this. And I think of the time manipulation that happens in diesel days, it's a week it's not, but it's, it's a week, and then all of a sudden you're done. And you're like, holy shit, that was the fastest 2 hours of my life. And like,
Yeah.
and I can't help but think of someone's journey in like something like an extreme weight loss journey, like yourself. Like all of a sudden it's like down to this. It seems like it's this, and then it's down to this. And when you can't do it, did you have those comparisons or those thoughts either in the moment or like down the road?
Sort of. I mean, I definitely did with like the first, that first 180 pounds came off relatively quickly. I mean, we're talking like a year and a little over a year. So, it was almost like my brain had to catch up. And then the rest of it has just been like, I mean, it has not been linear. It was going up and then it had to come down again. And then the last 8 years have just been, it's been a struggle bus. There was a lot of areas where, I thought after that first year, like we all get when we start making some progress, we're like, yeah, I got this. And except I didn't have it. You talked about Biggest Loser earlier, and I think that's it couldn't have been a better example. Everything is good so long as that environment stays exactly how it's supposed to stay. Now, the minute that environment changes, which for me it did, suddenly I'm in a hospital bed, they're ripping open my legs, and that changed everything for me. And suddenly, I found myself eating when I was stressed and going back to those certain things because you're looking for comfort that's familiar. So my brain went back to exactly what I probably would have expected that it did.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you're talking a lifetime of that. And you might have to revisit those things multiple times before, here we are, 8 years. You might have to revisit them multiple times before that neural pathway, there's no time on that. It took you, 30 years to put it on. It might take you 30 years to rewire that.
Yeah. And I think then I can't help but be drawn towards like, regardless, it's like what people say CrossFit's greatest strength is the community. And so
Yeah.
how do you then lean in, like, because whether it's with your Scaled Nation crew, with your seminar sisters, but now you've got a greater CrossFit community, like being friends with James and Denise, like, do you leverage those people when you need the motivation, discipline, routine, whatever?
Maybe not like I should. No, that's a great question. And I'll tell you why it's a little bit different for me, because when you when you become an affiliate owner, that's one of the things that I missed was like the great big group workouts, because suddenly I don't have those group workouts anymore. And, there's just been so many different things where I would have to start and stop CrossFit because of a surgery that happened. There've been multiple. And it was just trying to find like this, where is Athena's balance again? And it's taken forever. Just now recently, I'm like, okay, I feel like I have my group of people that I go work out with. This isn't like coach is on the floor kind of thing. This is just Coach Athena's time away from, so that I can get my own time.
Yeah.
So it's nice. I mean, there's been tons of people in the community that have been very influential for me, very that keep me motivated, and gave me those little nudges along the way that kept me going. So, I mean, they come in all different kinds of support in the CrossFit community.
They do, and I think you hit something on that I think will resonate with more people. It could have been just as easy for you to say, yeah, absolutely, all the time, and we're meeting up and doing this, but you're like, no, I'm an affiliate owner. And it's like you paused and reflected, because you're like, I probably should. And
Yeah.
how many, and I think any affiliate owner can relate to that, to
Yeah.
say like, Yeah, I haven't done class in as much as I should. I haven't you know, attended an affiliate gathering or a round table or a call, and like these answers are just like right out in front of us.
Yeah.
And so something that a Canadian affiliate can do, and more important or more proximity based as a Montreal based affiliate owner can do, is attend. This is this the first Scaled Nation working with larger bodied seminar in Canada? Is it the first
Yeah.
one?
The
Okay.
first one in Canada.
Where and when?
So our wonderful hosts, Carolyn Lambre and Jeff Adler, CrossFit Wonderland is hosting. This is September 18th. We start bright and early, 8 o'clock. We go till 5. It is a full day.
Okay. What aside from kind of the stuff we've talked about, but what are some highlights that some coaches can expect to pick up?
Oh, sure. So one of the things that we start off with is we call it roots of obesity. We want coaches to understand what they think they know about the condition versus here's how complex it can actually be. And so this is what you're actually working with. And then so we kind of are up and down all day. So we're in class for about an hour, and then we're out on the floor in an hour in a section called Can You Relate? And we want coaches to understand just a lot of the challenges that larger bodied athletes have, like balance and proprioception. So we take them through activities where they can actually feel like, oh, shit, that's what that feels like for someone. And so sometimes that you don't know until you actually experience it for yourself. So then we're back in lecture for a while, learning about how to attract people that have significant weight loss, what they're looking for, maybe why you don't have that profile in your gym. There's a lot of reasons why that might be happening. So we kind of help coaches audit their own, what are you showing to the world? What are you projecting? And then we're learning about larger body mechanics. Some of those educational posts I've been doing on my own, just talking about like why is the squat different for a larger body? Why would a burpee be different? Well, there's a lot of reasons why. Then we take a lunch, we come back, and then we go through a whole session about learning about equipment. We call it the X Factor, and it's all the things that you probably might not have ever have known about equipment in the gym, weight limits, capacities, those kinds of things, like where LBA kind of run into a lot of issues. And then the last half of the day, the last 3 hours, we do what we call scale forward. And we're really teaching coaches, I don't want to call it scaling. What we're teaching them is how to think.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's our day.
Cool.
It's a big one.
Cool. Is it the 18th? Because I'm looking at my calendar. Is it a Saturday or a Friday?
It's actually a Friday this time. We normally do seminars on Saturday. The reason why it's on a Friday this time is because we're piggybacking up on the seminar, or the level 1. Chuck will be up there with Matt.
Rick.
Yeah, there you go. So, yep. So they're delivering the L1 that weekend. So we're just going to piggyback right up on it.
Okay, so it is a Friday. And for those listening, Wonderland is a 14-minute Uber from the airport, I believe. I have taken that Uber ride. It's quick and easy to get to for a pop in and a pop out. That's great. So what's next for Athena then? What's over the horizon?
Well, we still have dedicated study time every day, so that has not fallen off the radar. I know where I messed up the first time, and so we're going to hit it again. So this fall, we're going to be doing a second attempt at that L3. Book number 2 is coming out this winter, which is exciting. And then we've got, gosh, there's a lot of things coming up. So we got Coaches Congress in London happening in October. And then
Okay.
we've got Affiliate Con in Dallas a little bit later in October. So that'll be like 2 weeks after I get back. We'll be down in Dallas. So there's a lot happening between now and the end of the winter.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so again, it's, you know, it should be motivation for coaches to Canadian coaches to try to get out to these things. Although it's, again, we have a London in Canada, London, Ontario. So for those listening, the conference is not in London, Ontario. It's in the first one. Um, that may be a little out of reach, but Affiliate Con, I'm hoping to make it. It's not
Are you
solidified in my head
really?
yet, but yeah, but
That would be
because again, I
amazing.
believe in like trying to connect and doing these things, and so they get a chance to see you. And where could, if someone can't make it to the seminar and they want to at least learn more, or they say if working with this population inspires them, where can they either reach out to you or website or anything like that?
Yeah. So they could just go directly to scalednation.com
Okay.
and they can learn all about the seminar, what we do in the seminar. The goal for this winter, I should have did this. I should have talked about this.
Sure. Still can.
The in-person seminars are amazing. I absolutely love them. But the downside of the in-person seminars are like, it's costly to put these things together. There's travel and there's all this stuff.
Yeah.
And not everybody can come to them. And, you know, the accessibility portion, obviously accessibility is important to us. We teach a course called Working with Larger Bodies. So getting that seminar online has been one of the biggest radar items for us for the last 2 years. But there was a lot of stuff that we do in the second part of the day that we had to modify how we teach that so that it can be taken into an online environment. I think what we decided to do was very similar to what they're doing with the level 1 and the level 2 hybrids, is that, you know, the first part would be the teaching, and then we would do like an online hybrid for the second part of it. But the goal is to get that online by the end of the year. So that's something
Very
else
cool.
that we're doing. So we're actually testing a few of the revised things for Montreal, which is why Montreal is so exciting, because it's like, okay, we think we've nailed it this time. Well, we're going to find out.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no different than any level 1 or level 2. Like the transmission of culture in the level 1 is such a cornerstone to that
Yeah.
weekend. But if it's the difference between someone starting their coaching journey or not, there's nothing wrong with the online one. And even the level 2, I've had 2 coaches do the hybrid now, and it was the difference of trying to wait potentially another year
That's
or
right.
to get going, right? And so
I mean,
that's
I think
cool
it's
that
an amazing, wonderful thing that CrossFit did, you know,
yeah.
like attending these seminars just to travel alone can be really, really challenging. You're talking about people who work, and I think having that option has been amazing.
Well, and I feel like in a way it perfectly like bookends the whole conversation in the sense of like if you try to do CrossFit so perfectly to the point where someone can't do it because
Right.
it's excluding them, then that's not CrossFit at all.
That's
It's
right.
you know, and on that note, 3, 2, 1, time.